All right. So, hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, who weren't invited through me, my name is Julia Duff. I am the executive director of the Spina Bifida Association of Northeastern New York. And we are hosting a virtual walk and roll on May 15th. And our theme this year is the power of your voice. This sort of stemmed from a conversation we were having about the walk and roll. It's an event that gathers hundreds of individuals, families, and friends of the Spina Bifida community to celebrate the accomplishments of the 166,000 estimated Americans living with spina bifida. And every time people leave that event, there's always a takeaway. A child connects with an adult who has spina bifida that they've never met. Parents get to connect, adults get to connect, teens get to connect, and they're the focus. They feel empowered. And, we wanted to be able to bring that virtually. And in doing so, we wanted to highlight the various types of advocacy that people with spina bifida are doing, whether it's meeting with government officials or on a day-to-day basis of educating yourself before you go to a doctor's appointment, because you're going to have to explain part of your condition to the doctor, whether they're a specialist or not. The stories of hurdles that people with spina bifida are put through to gain equal access to opportunities it's ongoing. The fight does not end. So we have brought in some featured speakers to highlight this and just kind of connect as a community and share about advocacy. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our featured speakers who will share a little bit about themselves, and then we'll begin our Q&A. So today we have with us Donna Jones and Julie Yindra. And Donna, you're on my left, so I'll let you start with the introductions.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm just so excited, and I've really been looking forward to this. As Julia said, my name is Donna Jones. For those of you that don't know me, I'm 45 years old, just turned 45, and I have myelomeningocele. I was born on the island of Guam, but have been living in the continental U.S. for quite a few years now. It's been a really rough road for me, however, health-wise. However, I love it. I smile when they say there's 166,000 of us, because looking at our group, there's quite a few of us that are part of the first generation to survive to adulthood, and I am one of those. I have a shunt, and it has given me a ton of trouble, but I'm 45 now, and so I take that very seriously. And I don't let people go, oh, that's so bad that there's 166,000 of us, because we're surviving. And so it's really important to me to talk to you about today and my experiences with legislative advocacy. It is something that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. And I really hope that you will ask questions of Julie and I.
Thank you, Donna and Julie.
So, folks, hi, I'm Julie Yindra. I am in the generation immediately prior to Donna. I am, how old am I? 58. I am about, in this summer, I'll be 59. So I'm getting to one of the, I'll be at one of the big ones really soon, right? And like Donna, when I talk to people about my experience with spina bifida, I also say, I'm really happy to celebrate my birthdays because I too represent that generation of adults. And I don't just say, the first generation of adults to survive in large numbers to adulthood. I represent the first group of adults that's gonna retire and grow old, right? Which I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm making plans for it now. Where do I want to live? Where can I use my hand cycle and my kayak and do all the things I want to do when I don't have to work for a living anymore? And I'm going to tell you one quick story about advocacy on a legislative level that kind of was really important to me early on. I've been very involved in the Spina Bifida Association for about 25 years. And as I said earlier, I mentioned that, for a long period of time in my early adulthood and until I was about in my 40s, I lived in North Carolina. And when I first started getting involved in the Spina Bifida Association, and doing the things they were asking me to do. I went on a couple of trips to Washington, D.C. and met with some congressmen's offices. I went to a hearing that they had when they first developed the Spina Bifida program at the CDC, and we're trying to get Congress to fund that and support that. And I wrote letters whenever I get those emails, right, from SBA, please write your congressman or your senators about this issue, right? I would do it. But a lot of people are like, there's no point. There's millions and millions of people, and those people get thousands of letters. They don't read them. They throw them in the trash. They don't pay attention. So I had been, pretty active for a few years, and my parents were going on a trip and I had lost my passport. They said, you want to go? But I was going to need a passport. We were going to Europe. And I had to go through the process of trying to get a rush on my passport, right? And back in those days, the way that you did that was you toddled yourself down to your local congressman's local office with a whole bunch of, paperwork and a big fat check and said, could my congressman please rush my passport? Now, this was early on, right? This was a long time ago. This is probably 20 years ago. And I went into the local Greensboro office of who was then my local congressman. And what was his name? I can't remember, but anyway, he was an older dude and he had been our congressman in that district for years and years. I went into the office and I said, I need help getting a rush on my passport. And the girl sitting at the front desk, who had one of those big, desktop computers, because desktop computers used to be, 20 years ago, they were a lot bigger than they are now. And she says, what's your name? And she types my name in and she says, oh, it's Howard Coble. That's who it was. It was Howard Coble's office. She said, you've sent Congressman Coble 6 letters. So they had kept track, right? They do read my letters and they know when a constituent walks into their office or contacts them, they know who you are and they know if you've made contact with their office before. So it does matter. Those little emails or letters that you send in or those phone calls that you make, they don't just end up in the black hole. They do matter. All of a sudden, I was like red carpet, right? Oh, what can I do for you, Miss Yindra? Blah, blah, blah. Let's get that right away, right? Because I had been in contact with him on 7 different occasions. And that meant something to them. So it does matter when you reach out to these folks.
Well, thank you, Julie. And I think you answered. One of the first questions that I want to talk about is, how do people get involved with legislative advocacy? I think it sounds intimidating. And then once you do it, you find it very different. Or maybe you do it a few times and you still find it different. So I think, talking about how you got involved with the Spina Bifida Association and then your relationship grew, and those relationships in advocacy and with SBA grew, you were doing more. But I'll let you, if you want to say anything else about how you got involved, and if not, Donna, then you can take that question and share with us how you got involved with advocacy.
Go for it, Donna.
Okay.
All right. So I served on the Spina Bifida National Board at the same time that Julie did. And
I remember having a conversation with you about that. Like, Donna, we need you to do something.
Okay. Yes. So Julie and a wonderful advocate and friend of ours named Tom Barak were really instrumental in getting me involved. And it was one of the best experiences of my life to be on that side of the advocacy, because I did get to do Teal on the Hill with them while I was on the board. But if you'll allow me to back up for a second. So I have served as a congressional staffer on 2 separate occasions. I worked on the House side for a representative from Indiana, and it was an incredible learning experience because our former CEO, Cindy Brownstein, came in and advocated for the Spina Bifida Association, and I got to meet her. But as a congressional staffer, even though I did not handle legislative issues, I was a staff assistant and a scheduler, I got to see the meetings that came into our office and the groups that would come in prepared, the ones that had the most amazing personal stories, but the ones who knew what sort of legislation was affecting them positively or negatively, and the ones that were prepared with those stories made the biggest difference in our office. And but it was incredible to watch them advocate, because I tried to learn from them and see who got the job done and who just didn't get it done, and why. So it was very educational for me. And on the flip side, I used to answer the phones. So when somebody would call from our district, or not even from our district, it was my job to take notes and to record their name, where they were from, if they had an email address, and what issue they were calling about. And then it was my job to take it over to the legislative assistant who handled that issue. So just going along with what Julie said, it's so important, because it does make a difference, especially if you are calling in to a congressional office, House or Senate, that represents your district. And it's so simple, you all. You just pick up the phone, you call in, you say the exact same things, and you say, I want you to support this, or I don't want you to support this. And this is why, because I am a member of your district. And I fielded those calls, and it was incredible when our community called in, because I go, hi, me too. And it, I was able to make those connections. But so later in life, after I left the Hill, that was when I was allowed to go do Teal on the Hill. And I know that we're going to deal with that later. So after I left the Hill, I went and worked on both a congressional campaign and Senator McCain's '08 presidential campaign. And on Senator McCain's campaign, it was my job to do disability outreach. And so I was on the other side now of being able to meet with these groups like the American Association of People with Disabilities, the ARC, all of these incredible groups who knew so much more than I did. And they educated me, and I took it back to the campaign. And I said, this is the community of millions of people that I am a part of. And these are the issues that are important to us. And this is why you have to care about us, because we vote and we donate. And so we matter. And there were some things that worked for us, and that they got the message, and some things that went right over their head. But then I got pulled into the veterans with disabilities. And I'm the daughter of a World War II veteran. My father does not have a disability, but I got to meet with Disabled Veterans of America and learn about the VA and how it works and how it doesn't work, and then help those veterans get coordinated care, but also to advocate for them within the campaign. And that one worked a little bit better because Senator McCain was a veteran. But again, I learned so much, but I was able to make a difference on the inside because I gave those groups an opportunity to have a voice. And so I'm very proud of that. And then just on a longer story. So at the time of the '08 campaign, the United Nations were trying to pass the United Nations, I just forgot the word.
Convention on people with
Thank you. And it is a really, really important piece of work that the UN was doing. President Obama jumped right on it and supported it. And Senator McCain did not. And he was very much against it. And couple of years later, when it actually got onto the Senate floor, former Senator Bob Dole was really pushing for it. He was sitting on the Senate floor when it went down in flames. And Senator McCain got up there and chastised everybody who did not vote in favor of it. And I'd like to think that somebody advocated on our behalf and convinced him that he needed to support this legislation, because it was a total role reversal. And so that meant a lot to me, because there was a change. Even though that legislation didn't pass, Senator McCain went from a strong no to yes all the way. So I've been able to, again, see this from so many different angles, and it's made me a huge believer in what we can do with our own voices as people with disabilities. And it has proved to me how important it is. I don't like to use the word obsessed because I think we use it too much in our society. However, I'm obsessed with trying to get our community into legislative advocacy and to try and get my point across that we can make a difference if we just get one more person on our side. My long story.
You both touched on really important points. And I think one of them is, whether the meeting is successful or not, Donna, you fielding those calls, that's someone in an office hearing spina bifida. Every time you call, that's another person having some understanding of what spina bifida is. And awareness can lead to access. That's why advocacy doesn't happen overnight, because when people start to recognize, okay, now I remember spina bifida. Now I start to understand a little bit about spina bifida. Now I understand why these policies are affecting people with spina bifida and why their stories matter and how we can make change. So I think, that is huge, that every call might not be successful, but you are still raising critical awareness that's going to lead to that down the road. And also the sense of community, and where you can connect with other disability agencies who are really involved in legislative advocacy and have a lot of the same needs and wants as you out of these policies that are affecting housing, transportation, employment, and education. So both of those points I love and I wanted to highlight. So our next question is, again, you guys kind of touched on it. So maybe I'll combine these two together. How has legislative advocacy impacted you as a person, and why do you continue to do it?
How has it impacted me as a person? The first time I was asked by SBA to go to Washington to meet with people in congressional offices, I was terrified. I'm not going to say the right thing. I'm not going to know what to do. Somebody earlier on said, the notion of this is kind of intimidating. But after I had the first round of meetings, I realized something. More often than not, you're not sitting there and meeting with the congresswoman or the senator. You're meeting with someone who's their legislative aide, who's a young person early in their career, working very hard to work their way up the ladder. And it's a lot, and 90% of them have never met a person with spina bifida. So, I learned something. It's an educational moment for me. Even if it doesn't go any further than the person who's sitting next to me in that room, the first thing I always start with is, tell me what you know about spina bifida. And 99% of the time they say, well, nothing, right? And so I, take that opportunity to just, so one of the things that I did early on in my advocacy efforts is I kind of developed the 2-minute elevator speech that I kind of have memorized now, that I can do it in my sleep, that just says, well, it's a neural tube defect that, occurs in the first trimester of pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. And I can sort of do that now without really thinking about it. And so that part of it is much easier for me. But I find that that's one of the things that changed me, was that I am a lot more comfortable now talking about myself and my community and advocating for myself and my community than I was when I started. I was terrified. But, the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you get over it, and the better you get at it.
So I remember this one time when I was still working on the Hill, and ADAPT came on the Hill in huge numbers. If you're not aware of who ADAPT is, they're this incredible group of people who advocate on behalf of community and home-based services, but they're also not afraid to get arrested, to tie themselves to national monuments, and to throw themselves down on the Capitol steps. They're amazing, and they're fearless. Well, so they came up on the Hill, and they came into our office in full force. But I worked for a congressman from Indiana. They brought Indiana constituents into that office, and they filled the whole office up. And they came in and they were educated, they were well-spoken, and they were ready to really advocate on behalf of a piece of legislation that was currently in the House. but they came in there so professionally that my boss actually sent me out there. He was listening in the back and he said, Donna, I want you to go out there and represent us, and you tell them that we support this legislation. We are ready to go to bat for them. And prior to that, he completely thought that ADAPT was just this fringe group that caused more trouble than helped.
Politics.
Yes, and they changed him. And it was, so that was really one of those aha moments for me of where advocacy really does make a difference, that these people came in and they cared about what they were talking about, but they knew how to talk to that office. And again, it was just about being so well prepared. And I'll never forget that, because I was a little scared of ADAPT prior to that. I love them now, and would bring them drinks if they came up on the Hill again. But anyway, so that really led me to wanting to do more for our community, and truly being on the Hill taught me so much more about the spina bifida community, because prior to that, the last time I had been around our people was when I was at Camp Carefree with Lisa. We had a week of spina bifida, and I got to be around kids like me. But the Spina Bifida Association introduced me to everybody and people who were so much like me. But I realized that I was living an easier time than some of these friends, because at that moment I was healthy. But then when I wasn't healthy, I realized I have really good health care and my friends don't, because I had congressional health care. And it made me very sad. And it's something that also still sticks with me now that I'm back on Medicare and have to fight them on a regular basis. And that's the flip side to this, is that because what I have to deal with every month with insurance, whether it's my catheters, my wheelchair, enemas, whatever, I have to fight them. I think I've said one time, Medicare decided when I was 32 that I no longer needed catheters, although I'm extremely sure I have been incontinent since birth. It was like a 5-month fight. So that's truly because of the Spina Bifida Association, 100% that I wanted to get involved. And I thank them, because now I care so much about what other people need and not just what I need. But on the flip side, I'm kind of sorry that this part's going to be recorded, but oh well. When I go up on Teal on the Hill, I am all about either shocking them or making them cry, because as far as I'm concerned, that is how you get them to remember you. And if I can just take down one staffer, one congressman, I have succeeded. And it's about making a lasting memory in their heads of why we matter.
I love what Donna just said.
Thank God.
Make them cry, shock them and make them cry. Look, here's one of the things that I say when they say, well, you're in higher education administration. Why do you do that? Why do you work at a college? And I say, because 75% of people like me don't have a job in this country. And that is unacceptable to me. And I know that if I can help individuals with disabilities, including people with spina bifida, get a college education, I can, and they also love data in these offices, right? I can triple the chances that they are going to be gainfully employed and taxpayers. If I can help them get a bachelor's degree, I can triple the chances that they will be employed. And they go, oh, wow, right? So you have to find a way to give them kernels of something, like Donna said, that they're not going to forget.
And then if I could just say one more thing.
Hmm?
We did Till on the Hill one time, and we were just explaining to them how expensive our surgeries are and how hard it is to get insurance to pay for it. And about 3 days later, I found myself sitting at Duke University getting ready to have shunt surgery. And so I had asked Cindy Brownstein, can I please have the phone number, or excuse me, the email addresses of all the legislators we met with? And I sent them an email and I said, I just wanted to thank you for meeting with us. because right now I'm hours away from going into emergency surgery for my shunt. And this is what my life is like. My shunt rules me. It's the boss of me, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm about to have brain surgery. And I had 3 of those offices respond to me and wish me well. But, you know, for me, it was about, again, making an impact and letting them understand that I have no control over my spina bifida. It controls me, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a comment or a question in the chat that I think is so relevant to what you guys just said about, you know, make them emotional. So the question that came in is, how do you get your point across without sounding or feeling like you're complaining or being whiny and needy? Does that get easier? And I think sometimes, you know, we are as a community so working hard to stop the stigma that people with disabilities need pity and need your sympathy, but that they are equal contributors if you give them the information, resources, and support that puts them on a level playing field. If they have access, see what they can do. You guys didn't get to hear it earlier, and maybe Julie will tell it a little bit earlier, but she talked about the relationship between COVID and how everyone had to really quickly adapt and utilize their resources and find a different way to do it. And I'm like, that's what I always think about when I think about people with spina bifida in my work, is that they are some of the most competent, capable, resourceful people. They've had to learn how to navigate this completely inaccessible world that doesn't know a lot about spina bifida. So anyway, back to the question, how do you get your point across without sounding like or feeling like you're complaining, being whiny or needy?
You want me to start with that one, Donna? I like to offer, here's the problem, here's the solution, right? Instead of going, wah, 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 poor me, I say, look, this is my issue. I don't have access to coordinated care. And in 2013, when I, as an adult with spina bifida, got cancer, I had a serious problem because I couldn't find anybody in the cancer world who knew anything about spina bifida. And none of my spina bifida doctors were willing to communicate with my oncology specialist. And my oncology specialist was like, I don't know anything about spina bifida. So I say, look, the solution is we have to find ways to encourage the concept of clinical coordinated care for adults with spina bifida. Instead of going, wah, 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 isn't that terrible? I have cancer. I say, here's the solution.
So for me, when I'm on Teal on the Hill, I smile a lot when I say that I have worked on congressional campaigns, that I have gone skiing, I play tennis, I weightlift, I have worked. But as soon as I get to the work part and say that I have been gainfully employed, but the minute I become gainfully employed, I lose Medicare, that I can only make below minimum wage in order to not lose that. And once I lose it, it's so hard to get back on because they'll want to know, why can't I work again? And again, I focus in on, with my spina bifida, 1 minute I am well, and truly 5 seconds later, I can be horribly ill. But I start on the positives first, I smile through it, and then I hit them with what Julie said, the facts about it. But a lot of times I will focus in on employment and Medicare insurance.
Yeah, and I think there's almost like a silencing of people with disabilities. I think growing up too, where you don't want to identify any differences because then you stand out, and we're kind of taught our whole life to fit into a box, take this one path, these societal pressures. So then when it comes to actually speaking out, it's more than just, okay, I'm getting involved in advocacy. It's a really big growing experience. and communicating experience that some people aren't used to having if people have spoke over them or they weren't taught that they should speak up to get what they deserve. We had another question come in. Can you talk about how much time you might have with your legislator or the aide and the importance of being prepared for those meetings?
15 to 30 minutes is usually all they're going to give you. So pare down literally your elevator speech to the critical pieces you want to communicate during that time.
Be prepared for 15 minutes, but have information for 30. That's the thing. And it's because you never know, because you might have an impact on that aide or that congressman, and they want you to stay longer. They want to talk more. And I just wanted to go back, if you don't mind, to the last question. So when I spoke before the congressional committee, one of the things that I said is that I don't want pity, because I see that pity in your eyes. And the congresswoman who was leading it, this amazing chairwoman, she came back with, "We don't feel pity for you, but behind them are the legislative aides." And I have shocked them. I've made one cry, and mouths are open. And those were the guys that were pitying me. So I was actually talking to them. And I think that it's, again, so important that we not be a pity party. We have to let these people know that we live lives we love.
So I was working at a university, and there was a classroom building where there wasn't a single-use accessible bathroom. And I had a student who was just starting her graduate degree, and she was going to be spending several hours in this building. And she was a chair user, and she needed an accessible bathroom. So I contacted facilities and said, we need to create an accessible bathroom in this building because there currently isn't one. And the guy wrote back and said, "Oh, we just don't have the money in the budget for that right now." And he says, "While I feel so sorry for these kids and what they have to go through," I wrote back and said, "I don't want your pity. I just want to use the can." Sometimes you just have to say, it's not about pity. It's about creating a world that allows me to go to school or to go to work or to be more productive or to be self-sufficient. And so much of the world is created with able-bodied people in mind that, we're not looking for, I don't need you to feel sorry for me and give me stuff. I need you to give me access so I can be productive and pay taxes, by the way. I like paying taxes. And when people hear me say that, they go, "Oh my God." No, I like paying taxes because you know what? I want to know that I am a member of society who's contributing my fair share. And so let me work. Make it, take away this crap about having a ceiling on what I can earn in order to be, eligible to have the health care that I require. It's holding people down, and it's wrong.
I love the 2 points. And I have so many points. I should be writing these down because I love them so much. But the elevator speech, I remember this year when we at Northeastern New York, we did our state advocacy, and every meeting I had to go in, and they were back to back because they were virtual. And it was like every time, what is spina bifida? And I swear I could recite it in my sleep by the end of it because you just say it so much. But it also makes me more comfortable when I do interviews that help raise awareness, or when I communicate with peers who don't know what spina bifida is, and I need to say clearly to them, like, this is the job I do, this is the community I serve, this is what I love. It really helps on a self-advocacy level, even though I'm not someone living with spina bifida. And then the other point that Julie made that I really liked, I'll get to it. I lost it for a sec, but oh, and I do want to touch on, Anya actually shared in our chat too a storytelling builder, which can help you, or story builder, yeah. So that was something that was part of the National Advocacy Teal on the Hill. and sort of helps you hone in how to share what's going on with your life in a meaningful way. And now I remember what I was going to say. Both of you touched on this. A lot of times it's systemic. It's the insurance system. It's the disability services system. It's the employment system. And it's so built upon a foundation of what the normal is, which people, you know, it's conversations with people who are able-bodied. And if we were more, the more we share our story, the more we use our voice, the more included we'll be, the more seats we'll have at the table. And then it's not like build a ramp so I can get in this building. The building's built with a ramp. And I know the ADA covers that, but ultimately what works for people who don't have disabilities works for people who have disabilities. So if we can change those systems, it benefits everyone with disabilities who are veterans, pregnant moms, seniors. There's a lot of community here that we can tie into. But I believe we had another question come in, so I just want to make sure. Yeah, so talking about maintaining a job with spina bifida and how certain policies impact that. Can you two touch on that a little bit?
Donna started talking about that earlier and how that's been an impediment for her. So Donna, you want to start?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Oh, it's about how do you maintain employment as a person with spina bifida? And you talked about that's been an impediment for you on a number of occasions. When you are in periods when you are working, how did you manage that?
Prayed. I mean, seriously, I prayed that I would stay well because I had already lost my Medicare at that point. But also at this point in my life, you know, I exercise, I eat well, I drink my water, and let's just be honest, boys and girls, drinking water is so important to us. I don't drink sodas, and I try not to drink a lot of coffee, but that's what keeps me healthy. Because if my kidneys or my bladder give me trouble, I'm out. And so I really do try and take care of myself at my age. I used to walk, and then I started to go to different mobility aids. I now use a wheelchair full-time by choice, but I understand that I need to exercise, and COVID has really messed me up. It's gotten in the way of my exercising. I also have a shoulder injury, but a lot of it is my fault that I have not exercised. And so there's only so much that we can do to stay employed, Julia, but the point is take care of yourself and, you know, do what you can do for your body, go to your checkups. And that's really it. I mean, let's just be honest. That's only so much that you can do. I hate to be gloom and doom, but I
No,
mean, really.
but it's true. You got to take care of yourself. You got to stay as healthy as you can. I have been very fortunate. I can hear the voice of my parents when I was a kid. You need to stay in school because you need a job that comes with good benefits, right? You need the kind of job where you can sit behind a desk and talk to people and earn a living, right? My father was like, when I was 7, he told me, you ain't going to be no ballerina, right?
I love that
So
story.
go to school, man, because that's where it's at for you. And they were right. So I have always, you know, I've worked in education for most of my adult life. But here's the thing. I have issues. And every now and then I have a sudden, unexpected issue. And so I do a few things, right? Number one, I carry a briefcase with me every day. In my briefcase, people think I'm carrying files home and doing work at home. In my briefcase is a change of clothes because I might need one in the course of my workday, right? The other thing is in all of my work environments that I have been in the last 25 years, I have had a work ally. It is one person that I work with who knows about all my intimate stuff, who can cover for me. If suddenly I have to get up and leave and go home because I have a problem, right? And I also live very close to work and always have. So what I will say to my ally right now, because I'm a director and I'm in charge of this office, my ally is my secretary. And she knows all the messy stuff. And I say, Jackie, once in a while, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk past your office or ride past your office and I got to go home. But know that in about an hour, hour and a half, I'll be back. Just make excuses for me and tell people that I had an emergency and I had to leave and I'll be back. And she does it. There have been times when I have had to leave my office. She knows when this is happening. She cancels my appointments for a couple of hours. She covers for me when my boss calls. Oh yeah, she can't come to the phone right now, but I'll have her get back to you just as soon as she can, right? I go home, I take a shower, I get dressed, I go back to work, right? So, but I'm lucky in that I have a car, I can drive. So, and the other thing I do in my place of work, and I've always done this, is what is my escape route? What is the fastest path between where I'm working and where my car is, where I can escape with the least amount of likelihood that I'm going to bump into another person on my way out the door? Because I don't want to be embarrassed if I don't have to be, right? You got to accept that you're going to have accidents from time to time, and you have to plan for them as best you can.
There's many times where I have forgotten to bring a catheter at my age, and then I'm in trouble. But it's a good thing I have a pamper in my purse so that when I do have an accident that obviously will come, I'm prepared. But I have, unlike Julie, I have never been anywhere near a bathroom. My offices have been so far away that, listen, we're going to toot in public. That happens. You can't avoid it.
Can't avoid it.
You're just going to have to laugh it off or get over it, depending on your thing. I just get embarrassed. But the thing about it is, if you can just be prepared, you'll be able to handle it a little bit better. But Julie's advice is, I really should just stop talking because
no, prepare, right? Accept it's going to happen and prepare. And really, if you are in the workplace, find an ally. Find someone you can trust and tell them everything. And tell them, even if it's just once in a while, I might ask you to help me get to the bathroom. Right. And I've noticed something else. The more time, Donna and I were both ambulatory early on, right? For most of our lives have been largely ambulatory. Like Donna, I am no longer, but I did notice when I started using a scooter, even if though it was part-time, when I'm sitting at my desk and I got to go, I realized something. If I try to walk down the hall, I'm a goner. But if I get in the scooter and sit, I can manage to get to the bathroom. Right? So use that wheelchair, use that scooter, and get yourself, if you are in a workplace, you need someone who's your friend, who is going to understand what you're going through and help you get to a car, or help you get home, or help you get changed, or help you whatever. You need one person that you can trust with that information.
And again, so I have made so many mistakes in my life where it comes to being prepared and accepting that there will be accidents and I have to get prepared. Oh God, I just lost my train of thought. It is amazing that my bladder and kidneys have lasted me because of what I have done to them and how I have treated them. I've still lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, moving on. I might come back to it. I'm probably not. Probably not.
Well, I just wanted to
kind of thing. It's happening to both of us.
I know, oh my God.
I say it all the time, and I'm 28, so I don't know what I will start a sentence, and it's happened multiple times on this Zoom. And for those who know me well, it happens multiple times a day, sometimes a meeting. So it's very welcomed here.
Throw your shunt under the bus. Throw it.
I hear two important messages, even, you know, while we're talking about work, and one is acceptance and then one is allies. You have to have a level of comfort with accepting who you are as an individual with spina bifida to be able to communicate that with a representative or with a friend at work. And that acceptance of this is who I am, this is what I need. And then the next part is finding that ally and being able to communicate it in a way so you get what you want with the normal supports that people should have. So I love that you guys touched on that, even though we're talking about being at work. It's a whole other way of advocating for yourself and ensuring you have access to what you need so that you can maintain your success and preparation. Yes, preparation, Millie, exactly. Being able to
Millie!
I know, Millie, you came.
Yay!
She is here. Yes. Yeah. And exactly that preparation of, I know this is who I am. This is what I live with. The best way to deal with it is for me to prepare and find those allies. And that's a part of it. And things will happen. We can't control everything with spina bifida. You know, I liked what Donna said about how, you know, she takes care of her health. If her shunt malfunctions, not something necessarily she can control, but maintaining her kidney health, she's going to focus on her water intake, her exercise routine, and what she puts into her body. So I think that really ties into that.
Ooh, I remembered. Can I say?
Yes, I hope that my long ramble would do that.
Okay. So do as I say, not as I do. So over the last year, I've stopped drinking water because why? I have bladder spasms. When I'm lifting weights, I have bladder spasms. And then I wet. And then I have to go run for the bathroom. I'm now dehydrated on a regular basis, and I am playing catch up. And I want to just beat myself up and go, you know better than that. And on top of it, so I've been on Ditropan and Detrol my whole life. It's no longer working. And that was part of the reason why I stopped drinking water. And I drink iced tea because for whatever reason, it isn't a diuretic for me. But do as I say, not as I do. Again, I'm so lucky, y'all, that my bladder and kidneys, when I got them checked out last week, and I wanted to do a Facebook post about this, are fine, but I am severely dehydrated. And I'm playing catch up every single day. But I used to drink 100 ounces of water a day just to keep myself hydrated with my workouts. I'm lucky now if I get even an 8-ounce glass in. It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, by the way, folks, when Donna said earlier, oh yeah, I lift weights, she's being modest. She is serious about the weightlifting thing.
We recently did a wellness challenge, and part of that was tracking your water intake. And I think it was a really cool takeaway when a lot of people were like, you know, you think you're drinking a lot of water. You feel like you're drinking it all the time, but unless you're tracking it, you don't really know how much you're drinking and how much is appropriate for you. And the board chair of Greater New England, you know, gave us this quick, easy math to do where you take your body weight. I think you cut it in half, and that's the amount of ounces of water you drink a day. I know, Donna, you probably have some considerations when you're working out the way you were, but that was like one rule of thumb that was really easy for people to sort of follow and take suit. But that hydration is really important. And I love all the people commenting on the do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, I missed it.
If I had $1 for every time I said that. All right, so I'm going to segue a little bit. So I was lucky enough to meet Julie and Donna both at my first Teal on the Hill event. So in New York State, we have had an advocacy program since I started as the case manager back in 2015. And when Teal on the Hill started, I was first able to attend in the winter of 2019. It might have been the spring at that point. I think it was winter. And I got to meet them both that way. And, you know, I was so used to our advocacy program. I was so comfortable in meetings, but it was such an incredible experience to just gather with so many strong-willed, passionate advocates in our community and just see everyone going off on their separate ways, running their own meetings. It was a wonderful experience. So, you know, my next question for you guys is, tell us a little bit about Teal on the Hill for those who haven't been able to attend, especially in person.
So
You
one
guys
of the
are-
great things about Teal on the Hill is that SBA does a fantastic job of prepping you, right? They have meetings to talk with you about developing your elevator speech and telling your story. And then they give you all these written materials about the different legislative initiatives that we are supporting and that we want to mention. So you have handouts to give to people, and you have a folder with reference. I don't remember that it's HR 127 that I'm talking about when I go. So I have to look down at my notes every once in a while. Oh yeah, HR 127. We're definitely in fact. So, you know, that's the first thing, is that you're not going in there empty-handed. SBA is going to provide you with the support, with the information, with the training that you need before you go into those offices, is the first thing. But it is something else to see a group of people, many of whom are in chairs or scooters, hanging out in the Capitol Hill office buildings, because people notice us, right? They wouldn't turn and look if they just happen to see a person in a wheelchair. But when they say 20 people in wheelchairs coming down the hall, they're, oh, something's coming, right? They take notice, and it's kind of cool. Like, yeah, we're here just like everybody else, right? And so that was one of the cool things for me, was that sort of group dynamic of, I'm here as a member of a community, and we're all here in force, and we mean business.
I love Teal on the Hill. I live for Teal on the Hill at this point. So those of you who know me well know that I'm very temperamental and I'm very dramatic. And nothing makes me angrier and feel more desperate than when somebody in our community or a person with a disability says, the government doesn't care about us. They will not listen. My one voice doesn't matter. You will send me into outer space over it. And, you know, there was somebody on Facebook who badgered me before Teal on the Hill this year about how you're wasting your time. Government doesn't care about you. And I finally just had to ignore him, because I had tried, multiple people had tried to win him over, and it was not going to happen. And I'm telling you, if you come to Teal on the Hill, you will see what a difference you can make. And even if you are there just for yourself, even if you don't care about anything else, but you want insurance to pay for your wheelchair wheels, because right now Medicare is threatening not to do it. If you just want these legislators to understand our wheelchair wheels are kind of, you know, important to go from A to B, or else I will crawl, that's okay. But if you come and you speak with your voice and you believe that your story, and more importantly, your life matters, then Teal on the Hill gives you the access to get up there and advocate for yourself, for your community, and the issues that are important to you. But at the end of the day, you guys, you have to realize that there will be no change for people with disabilities if we don't speak up. You cannot expect somebody who does not have a disability that works in Congress to care about you if they don't know you exist. And there are 166,000 of us that matter. And that is just what I wish people would understand, is that we matter. And Teal on the Hill is the most amazing experience to just be with each other. And like Julie said, get up on the hill so they can see. Some of us walk, some of us use wheelchairs, some of us use crutches, but we're all the same. You can make a difference by just putting your face in that group. And I understand for some people, they didn't want to talk and they didn't want to tell their personal stories. It still matters if you are there and looking strong and smiling, and then you try at the next meeting. But Teal on the Hill is our one opportunity as a whole group to advocate for each other. And so just so you know, if you put on Facebook or Instagram that your voice doesn't matter, I will most likely unleash on you, just so you know. But Teal on the Hill, I beg you, start saving your dollars.
Go.
Please come, get ready, because Teal on the Hill is going to happen again next year. And we're planning to be in person. And I understand it's expensive. Put $1 a week in your bank account. Get ready for it because it's worth it. It is worth the time, the expense, the pressure on your body, the pressure on your brain. It's worth it. So worth it.
A number of years ago, I was doing congressional visits, and I was with a group of people, and there was a young lady who was probably about 18 or 19, and she was shy and she didn't want to say anything. But here's what her presence there in that group was able to do. One of the legislative aides turned to me and said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because you see that girl over there? I want her life to be easier than mine has been." And that was all I needed to say. And the fact that she was there made that possible. And that was really impactful.
And then if I could just call out somebody who is not here, I might butcher her last name, but Charlotte Muntz.
Yeah.
I met her at the last in-person Teal on the Hill. She was very shy. She was very sweet. She smiled a lot. And she was just so endearing. But she was with her mom, who was also an amazing advocate for her. But, said she just doesn't want to talk and she's scared. If you look at Facebook now, she participated in the Teal on the Hill this year virtually, and she is going gangbusters with Anya on Facebook, trying to get people involved, trying to sign up for committees. I mean, between all of us, I didn't even know that was her until I looked at the picture, and then my brain exploded with happiness.
Because that's what people like Donna and I want, is to create a generation of people that are going to come after us and do what we've been doing.
Someday we won't be here, y'all, but you will. And you have to carry this torch. It's so important because if Julie and I say, okay, we can no longer do it physically, then who picks up after us? I hope you.
What I loved about Teal on the Hill too was those people who were afraid of public speaking or talking to a representative realized how quickly that just by being there, it gave others confidence to share. And then that kept going. The momentum really built where everyone was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or I don't know what I'm going to say. And, when you say share your story, it's so broad, that can be intimidating. But when you're just kind of like we are now, and in the chat, you see it sitting, talking about our everyday or your everyday lives and how you're being impacted and how you see the state or the nation making a difference so that it can be more inclusive and more accessible. It just builds off each other. And there's this beautiful momentum among a group of people advocating. So whether you're comfortable or not to share, I think oftentimes you're gonna feel inclined to speak because of that community that you get when you're at an event like Teal on the Hill. It was so much, yeah, I can't wait until we can all be together again there. And for my New Yorkers that didn't come with me last time, I think it was my New York Greater New England group where I met Julie, and we were some of the only ones from New York, and a few others that I hadn't met as well. But for those of you who haven't been, there's scholarships for adults through the National Association, as well as for adults in New York State. through the Spina Bifida Association of Northeastern New York. So, and when it comes to worrying about how am I going to get around, what about transportation? Everyone figures it out. It figured it out, and they did it together. And that again is the power of community, the power of your voice and just being there. So yeah, I love that.
And another thing is when I was on the Hill 2 years ago with the Spina Bifida Association, the Hill is not a handicap accessible place, and it is very hard for me to not be angry about it. But it was at least made me feel better that I actually did my testimony in the office building that I worked at, where before it was only one accessible entrance. They now had two accessible entrances. But I shouldn't have to be excited about that, but I was. And that is, that is the thing is, I'm angry at my age, very angry, but I use my anger to fuel making the change, because like Julie says, I want two things. I want some child with spina bifida to look at me and know that they can make it, that they can have an active life, they can have a happy life. And then even though the health issues are going to come and get you at the worst times, we rebound. We're so resilient. And so I want to give some child, some 5-year-old, some, excitement about being an adult with spina bifida. But also what's been near and dear to my heart in the last 10 years is talking to parents of kids with spina bifida and saying, your kid will make it. Your kid will have a good life. It's going to be hard. It's going to be harder than the kids who don't have disabilities, but it will make them a stronger person. But stop feeling bad about your child.
And stop trying to protect them from everything.
Make them make the bed, for God's sake. But just so grabbing mothers and going, it's going to be fine, and going to the dads and saying, make them get dirty, make them get hurt, go play on the swings, fall off the swings. Treat your child like they weren't disabled, and your child will be a stronger person for it, because we have to learn to be strong, because there's a lot of crap that we're going to have to deal with.
And that makes me think of too a conversation I've had with both of you about talking to parents of adult children with spina bifida who they are treating like young children, and just because that was the way they thought was the right way to parent, not a lack of love or intelligence in any way, but sort of hindered the growth of their child by remaining a caretaker when they didn't need to be. I think, hearing you guys say that, I just wish we had more parents and young folks on this call, because it's important, like
I think that's an idea for another session.
Yeah, it is absolutely, because like you said, who's going to be here to advocate after you? Who is going to take care of you too? We got to be looking forward, and also realizing we can be a part of a better and brighter future for all those impacted by spina bifida, our new mission. So my last question that I wrote out for you ladies, and I'll try and save some time in case people want to just have a little open chat and not take up too much more of your time. I know a lot of folks got dinner. If you could say one thing to someone with spina bifida about getting involved with advocacy, what do you wish you could say, or what do you wish people knew who weren't involved? What do you wish they knew?
You're on mute.
Silence Julie and Donna. Did I do that?
No, it's sorry, the dog again. Julie, you're going to have to go first, because she's giving me one thing. Good luck with that.
This is a huge question. And Donna knows me, and some of the other folks on this call know me. There have been periods in my life, my mother and I, she's 85 now, and we talk about those times in my life, and we refer to that as the joys of screwing up. And I have, right? a lot of people have listened to me do this advocacy thing or this public speaking thing. And they'll say, you should run for office. You'd be really good. You should run for office. And you know what I tell them? Never, ever, ever am I going to run for public office. And I'll tell you why. Because of something Dolly Parton said in a movie called Steel Magnolias. She said, oh, honey, it's the 80s. If you can achieve puberty, you can achieve a past. And I have achieved a past, and I never, ever want anyone looking into it. Right. But it is, I think one of the things that makes me a good advocate is that I know what it is to fall over on your face and screw up and get up and brush yourself off and do it again. Like Donna says, we are resilient, right? And one of the reasons to be an advocate is to be able to say to the person who's coming up behind you, look, it's okay. I am a college professor, but I graduated with the lowest grade point average in my entire class in high school. You will be okay, right? And so advocacy is lots of different things. It's not just speaking to senators and congressmen. It is serving as a model for people who need what you have and for people who will benefit from the experiences that you have had, whether it's parents of kids with disabilities or kids with disabilities or your local state representatives or whoever. There are people out there who will benefit from hearing what you have to say. And that's the most important thing.
I'm so sorry, I've forgotten the question. Dear God, you guys are middle age.
So what would you, it's twofold, not twofold in nature, but you can answer either or. What do you wish you could share with someone living with spina bifida who's not involved in advocacy? What do you wish you could share, or what do you wish you could say to someone who's just not involved, and why it's important?
First, I'd ask them why not. I would, because I want to know what they think, and you guys can put it in the chat, you know, if you've been one of the not involved before. Because I think that advocacy comes on so many different levels. I think Julie touched on that. And so if the idea of standing or sitting in a congressional office scares you to death, then call and make a phone call and tell them who you are and what you want. If that's too much, then join your spina bifida chapter and help them write letters, write emails. But you have to understand that truly nothing will change if you're not willing to advocate. Think about it this way. When we go into our doctor's offices, especially when you are meeting with a new doctor, if you don't educate them on spina bifida, if you don't educate them on our myriad of issues, especially if it's a resident who's never seen us before, how will they be able to treat us, and how will they treat us as individuals with spina bifida? How will we get the care that we deserve if we don't advocate in that medical office? And you learn how to do that at a really young age. So you need to take that into the government and say, I've done this before. I'm a pro at this. Because if I can tell some neurosurgeon who says that I am not in shunt failure when I know that I am, and I can make them give me a CAT scan and prove that I am right because I know my body, then I can look at some congressman who was not able to get into office unless people voted him or her in or out. I can do that. I think I jumped my sentence, but you have to understand that you cannot expect change, and you cannot expect a difference to be made in your life by being silent or letting somebody else do it for us. On a side note, I think too many people think that the Spina Bifida Association, Sarah Struey, and everybody who works there is there to make your life better, that they alone are to go to Capitol Hill with our lobbyists and do everything for you. Not possible. All right. Sarah is one person and she does amazing work, and everybody in that office does amazing work. But remember, it's a non-profit. So they have to make sure that they use their money correctly to get the best job done. But you cannot expect your national organization to do everything for you. It is your job to advocate for yourself. Did I answer the question?
You
That
did.
crumb.
And I'm actually laughing because we have these in New York State. When we request funding, we have the same conversation because currently, for not much longer, I'm a staff of one. Now we've gotten some New York State funding, so we're going to have a staff person to assist with individual and family services. But everyone always says that. And my biggest takeaway is, if I'm doing it for you, how am I actually helping you? This is what we want to teach, parents and everyone, the youth, is that you can't expect people to do it for you. And if we put that on national, then they're not helping the community at large.
And I'm an old person, and I remember the early days of the disability rights movement in this country. If you haven't read Being Human, Judy Human's memoir, read it. It's fabulous. But one of the mottos that came from the early days of the disability rights movement was nothing about us without us, right? At that point in history, we were fighting against the notion of people making decisions on our behalf without involving us. And now we're turning around and saying, go do that for me. No, no, no. There's help, there's support, there's allies, there's people that will be there with you to help you and support you, but you need to be involved. You need to make these things happen.
And then if I could jump back in again, is that okay, Julie? I know we're running out of time.
No, you're fine. Donna, I just had a question, and I don't know if it was you or if it was Will. One of you, I think, said this to me during my first Teal on the Hill. So I'm just making a comment of, it's not what can you do for, or what can your Spina Bifida Association do for you? It's what can you do for, or what can you do for the organization that's going to help you? So, if you expect things to kind of come to you just because the association exists, that's not going to happen. But the second you put your foot in that door, or your wheel in that door, you're going to start realizing how much you will benefit from a chapter on a local or a national level. And I loved that, because I was like, yeah, that's right. But go ahead, Donna.
That's Will Dickey. I can't take
It was Will.
That's got Will written all over it. So I'm going to hit on 3 points, because again, I know you guys need to go. 1, people like Julie and I, the adults, are here to help you, to be of support to you. If you need advice, because I know we're missing some questions in the chat, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you my phone number. You can't have Julie's phone number, but
you can have my email address, though.
You can have her email address. But that's the thing is, please look to us, especially people like Will and Millie. Oh my God, reach out to Millie, bug her, because that's what we're here for, you all, because not to be gloom and doom, but someday we won't be here. So let me help you as much as I possibly can. Second thing, volunteer in an office if you can. Once you get vaccinated and we get past this world. I'm sorry?
Millie just posted a chat saying she had to leave, and I was like, bye, Millie.
Bye, Millie. Love you. But if you can, volunteer. Volunteer in your congressional office, volunteer in your local Senate office. So that way you put a face on us, but just volunteer, because that way your time is yours and your insurance is not affected by it. But put a face to us on the local level. And the third thing is, I'm going to read this because I don't want to get it wrong, but this is something that I've always wanted to touch on. We talk a lot about advocacy on the national level, but one thing that I learned working on the Hill is that you might miss some piece of legislation that's happening in your state that will directly affect you and your family right away if you focus too much on the congressional side, because Congress takes a long time to pass stuff. I mean, dear God, look what they do with the budget. So the thing about it is, pay attention to what's going on in your local government. Go and meet with them, reach out to them, let them know how many people with spina bifida live in their district. But I'm going to read this out to you. I had asked Jay Deshevsky, who I think is an amazing advocate. If you don't follow him on Facebook, do it. Friend him ASAP. But I asked him, because he does work on the local level, and I don't do that. I said, you know, do you have any advice on how the community can stay up to date with what is happening in their state legislatures? And he says, there are a lot of agencies in our state that I get their email updates, and they include sections on legislative updates where people can see what bills the agencies are following, state agencies, nonprofits, etc. So I'd subscribe to as many listservs as possible and also get familiar with as many entities as possible. For instance, the Local Protection and Advocacy, not only via email, but also following, liking their pages on social media, reaching out to them and being active on social media with them, and then also doing a Google search for their state legislature and getting familiar with their website by browsing and learning which legislative district you belong to. That's very easy to do, so that they can talk to their legislatures and learn that they are their constituents and they vote for the ones in their districts. Local level advocacy is so important, you all, and we skim over it. And so I feel I want to keep pushing that to you all, is pay attention what's going on in your local government, because that kind of stuff passes fast and affects you even more quickly. So keep that in mind and sign up for the listservs. I'm very grateful to him for that. But especially, you know, make sure that you find out who your legislators are in your district. And finally, register to vote.
Vote.
Register to vote. It's another
Vote.
thing to get me.
Don't whine. Vote.
Don't whine. Stop whining. Vote. Register to vote. It's so easy. It's so easy. And take the census.
Speaking of which, somebody asked a question and both Julia and I replied back. Judy Heumann is the author and the disability rights advocate. And if you haven't watched it on Netflix, watch the movie Crip Camp. It is a documentary film about the early days, and Judy Heumann is one of the featured people in the film. She worked at this camp as a young person that was a camp for kids with disabilities that really sort of was the breeding ground for the people who created the disability rights movement in America.
And finally, for 1 hour of your day that you would have used on social media, get involved in your local legislation, your local government. Spend 1 hour that you would have spent on social media and make a difference in your lives and the rest of our community.
You guys, you are just so incredible. I could go on forever. And you know, like in New York State, we've built this spina bifida advocacy program. In part, that's why, you know, we were recognized this year, is because we have been sort of building it from the ground up. But I remember 5 years ago, I attended these meetings, maybe with one staff person, one consumer. 5 years later, there's not a problem getting bodies into meetings because people are there. And I no longer have to do the whole what is spina bifida every single time, because people are like, no, I've heard you. Now I'm wondering why you're back, because I don't get why your question or, you know, your ask has not been resolved. It's a really incredible feeling when you finally affect change. And you're a part of it, and it's just talking about your life and about what you do. And you know, we mentioned Crip Camp, and I think that Crip Camp really you know, blew me away in the sense of the ADA is still 31 years old now, and you look back at some of the other movements that really started almost a decade ago. The ADA is still fresh, so we've come so far, but we really still have a long way to go. And if you don't, you know, if you can see what those folks back then did with the Capitol crawl and the sit-ins, they really, you know, they were just on the same page. Everyone had the same mission going into that. and they worked together and the outcome was successful. I get frustrated sometimes that it's as young as it is, but I'm also just so proud of the history and the growth we've made in the 30 years since it's passed. But just to kind of harp on what Julie and Donna said, if advocates don't continue, then things will plateau and they won't change, and we need to be getting folks involved. And there's so many advocacy programs. I can only really speak to New York State, but our local consumer directed program, New York Association on Independent Living, our local Independent Living Center, they all develop legislative agendas. Huh?
Also, CILs, Centers for Independent Living. I just typed it in the box.
Oh, yeah.
We're like that mind meld.
A lot of times they will, you know, dictate a legislative agenda for you. So if you're uncomfortable with policy research, that's okay. There's going to be someone there to kind of explain, this is the policy. This is why it's, this is how it's going to affect you. Cause that's intimidating as well, beyond just the public speaking. So there's agencies you can collaborate with to build your comfort. And then there's chapters like, you know, ours in Northeastern New York, that are setting their own agenda and ensuring people with spina bifida are considered at the tables. So you two are just so wonderful, and you've given us way more time than we've asked for. And I think this was, you know, we have people in here who have advocated in many meetings and people who haven't, but it's still just a great reminder of why this is important, of why we do need to look forward to Teal on the Hill next year, and you can still take action for Teal on the Hill. The budget process is still going, so don't hesitate to visit the Spina Bifida Association's website. And yeah, thank you guys.